It is I, Christopher Sabat, the voice of Jiang Ziya in this feature film, Jiang Ziya. And you're watching Team JVS Freak.
First off, Chris, thank you so much for having me. Thanks for this interview opportunity. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I luckily have water and power and all that good stuff. And a lot of Texas has been without it for the last week. It's been absolutely bonkers. I've gotten less of it than other people, and certainly not anywhere near as bad as some of my colleagues who've had pipes explode and all sorts of terrible things happen to them.
Jeez, yeah, my prayers go out to you, man. I've heard some really, man, a lot of people going through a lot as far as
they are, dude. So, as if the pandemic wasn't enough, you know what I mean? And then to get slapped by this, like there's a writer that I'm working with, actually somebody who helped actually do some time codes for this movie that we're about to discuss. She's sitting in her house right now, thermostat. I mean, her temperature in her house is 31 degrees. She has no running water.
Oh, no.
They have to go out to their car to heat up. It's like, it's weird, man. Is this America or what? It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm prayerful and hopeful that 2021 is a lot better than 2020. At the end of the day, that's all I can really kind of hope for.
I'm hoping the same. I got my fingers crossed, that's for sure.
Yeah, but let's go ahead and dive deep, man.
Sure.
To me, you are easily one of the most well-known, iconic English dub voice actors that we've had. From All Might to Vegeta to Piccolo, of course, to Garland to Jason, Tokyo Ghoul. I've been following you for quite some time, and I love your work and I love your talent. And as far as this character, Jiang, and him being the celestial commander and kind of war-written, I was curious, what was it that enticed you about this character as well as this role specifically?
Well, it was originally like I originally try not since Dragon Ball do I really try and cast myself in a bunch of stuff, like especially if my studio is producing it. In this particular case, one of the executives over at Wellgo, who I've known for 20 years, he used to work, actually he was one of the original like video sales guys back from the original Funimation days. His name's Tony. Oh, wow. He said, hey, we're doing this amazing film, Jiang Ziya, and we'd really like you to like play a role in it. And I was like, well, I mean, if you're saying I've got to, I was looking, and as I was studying the film and looking through the film, I was like, well, there's only one guy I really like connect with, and it's this dude, Jiang Ziya. And I loved his stillness. Like the hard part about him was attempting to voice him in a way that didn't sound like he's bored, because he genuinely is. It's a dude who's dealing with a lot of stuff. He's very zenned out. Clearly, he can catch fish without even a hook, and he can sit there for 10 years in the snow and just ponder his thoughts. But the relationship that he forms with Zhao throughout the thing is amazing. It's and it reminded me a lot of my own kids. And I have two daughters myself, one named Hero, oddly enough, and one named Nova, and they both are they're just these really like rambunctious, fun kids, and I loved the relationship between the two of them, this weird kind of father-daughter type relationship that they had. And just really, it was a character that was somewhat relaxing to play in a way too, because it wasn't that vocally stressful, but because of the sincerity of the film and the success of their original film, Jaina, I think that's what it was called.
Nezha.
Nezha, that's what it was. Sorry, Wellgo. I don't remember all your Chinese named movies, but it's a beautiful, beautiful film, and it's a beautiful set of films. To me, these feel like Miyazaki meets Marvel kind of, and I've worked on a lot of Chinese productions, a lot of them for Wellgo, And this was definitely one that felt like just was beautifully done. Like it's a sea change for the kind of the Chinese film industry, because it was beautiful. It stands up to anything. I mean, I'd hold that thing up against anything we've done in America, hands down. Just absolutely stunning visually. And what was beautiful about it too, like, while the story does take a lot of, it takes a lot of, attention to kind of follow it. And it is it's a slow moving adventure to some degree. It's like the slowest, road trip movie, by its very nature. I liked that it was, that it did have a satisfying ending in a way that some non-Western films kind of like don't seem to have. Like there's a lot, I don't know how often times you watch like even Japanese, Chinese films. There's some Eastern like philosophies that don't translate that well, but this one really did translate in a cool way. And I think it wasn't too complicated to understand. It wasn't like the earth is upset about the humans aren't recycling, so it's going to eat itself and send out like weird, bizarre creatures. Like this one really did make sense, and it's actually based on some pretty serious like Chinese folklore.
Yeah. Even from the opening of this, like I was like, oh, this is something next level. Like from a 2D visual immersion, then the CG, and then again, this segues into even this role specifically. Though, is that, I mean, yes, he's a soldier, but he's very multi-layered. Like he is empathetic, he's compassionate, but he's very strong, And I mean, with a lot of the different roles, the classic characters that you've had, some of them have been, redeeming characters, like characters that have been some of the worst human beings you could think of, and just
I could think of a couple of those.
And then also some of the ones that are most charismatic that have been torn down from where they were at such a high plateau. And I was just curious, like, do you seek out, these multifaceted characters, or do people pursue you to voice them? I was just really curious about that.
I don't know what it is. And here, the thing is, I guess my voice suits kind of tough guy characters, but by my very nature, like I'm not a super tough guy. I'm gonna be honest. I'm an indoor kid. Like I don't spend a lot of time, lifting weights and shooting fire out of my hands. Like I'd rather be inside playing video games with my kids, right? But it's the thing I love is playing characters, and I think it's because I love playing them so much that maybe I'm pretty good at them, I suppose, and that's why people like to use me as them. But I love the tough guy characters that have a heart. And I don't like playing villains that are just sinister for no reason. And actually, I don't like playing good guy heroes, like Goku like heroes. I don't really like the everything is positive all the time type of guy either. I'm kind of cynical by my very nature. And so maybe that tracks when I'm recording as well. But there's something about those type of roles, like Zoro and Vegeta and Kuwabara, and you could list a billion of them actually, like Yami in Black Clover if you're watching that. There's all of these types of characters that kind of have a very similar theme, and it's like they're probably not the type of people that would hang around in a group of 10 people like this just for fun.
Not at all.
But they're a good enough person to know that they want to do the right thing. And so I think Jiang Ziya is no exception. Like the sacrifice that he made, he could have had a pretty easy life if he just killed that nine-tailed fox like they asked him to at the beginning. His life would be pretty plush. He was offered like the stairs to go up to visit the gods and just hang out. It'd have been pretty rad. And he affected a lot of people, as you saw. Like, and none of these are really spoilers unless you think that something in the first 10 minutes is a spoiler. You get most of this stuff pretty early on in the film.
Sure.
But yeah, his life would have been a lot easier had he have just done kind of what his superiors wanted him to do.
Yeah, no, absolutely, completely agree. It was amazing. So going into, like you said, some of the different characters you've played over the years, some of them very iconic, whether they're hero or villain alike. I was just kind of curious about who is your favorite? I know that's a trigger question. Like some people, they don't want to sit there and say, but I mean, you played enough that I'm kind of like, sometimes you ask that question, it's like, oh, well, this is why favorite because this is the most challenging, or this is what, you know, I always remember this and I always pull from this in some shape or form. So I was curious how you wanted to tackle that question.
It's really hard because I am like blessed and cursed with a terrible memory. So sometimes stuff that's like top of mind ends up being something that's like my favorite, but I can kind of classify some stuff right now for you. Like I can't compare anything to Vegeta because Vegeta is like, he's just like a status that you can't achieve with a character because I've played that guy for 20 years. It's a long time to be playing the same role. Like I can't say that I can't even include him in the list. But really the character that really got me has been over the last several years has been All Might in My Hero Academia. And that show really, really resonates with me. I love that is such a great character to get to play this really like beefy, buffed out dude who's really putting on kind of a show, and he's like comical and he's fun and he's interesting and he's really kind and he loves people and he wants to put on a smile. But then his real version of himself is so entirely different. But there's a challenge in playing him because you don't ever want to play. There's the challenge in playing like regular kind of no might, all might, like this is the kind of the non-powered up version of him, is to make him sound inspired, but just tired. Because it's very easy to look at him, see his eyes, and kind of see his body language and play him as sort of bored and uninterested. He's very interested. He wants to be. He's as good of a person as the buffed up All Might. It's just he's a different. He's just out of energy. He's just exhausted because he has this sort of mortal wound. And that show has really brought so much joy to me. And it's been a different relationship, like to the fans than I've had ever before. Because when I worked on Dragon Ball originally, Dragon Ball Z was one of those shows when we were first working on it. Most of the people watched it were like your age when you watched it, which is like 6, 7, 8 years old. So like, I wasn't seeing people out on the street, and there was no internet at the time. So like 6-year-olds weren't tweeting me, telling me what they thought of the last episode. So it was a different thing for me. So like, but this time around, I'm getting to meet people immediately after episodes air. I get to see them at conventions. Well, at least used to pre-pandemic, but the people I'm meeting are like really sweet. They're good. They're good people. Like Vegeta, the people I meet who are Dragon Ball fans, they're cool as hell, but you never quite know what you're going to get. You're either going to get some like super muscled up dude who's like, I love working out, just watching Vegeta do his thing, man. I can't help it. Or you'll find some football players like, I just played in the locker room when we were, getting dressed every day. It's awesome. Or you're going to find someone who was obsessed with it when he was a kid, introduced it to his family. And so there's kind of it was a different thing because it was a nostalgia that brought people in. Yeah. But now with the fans of My Hero Academia, these are people who are the people who really love this show. And it's a varied number of people, but the people I really like that enjoy the show are the people who feel disenfranchised, the people who didn't feel like they fit in, and the show kind of gives them the inspiration to do the right thing, to kind of find their quirk and find their power and join up with other people who might have a quirk. And that's the other thing I love about that show is that like My Hero Academia, people work together. It's not just waiting for the most powerful person on the show to do his thing. It's always all of them participating in some sort of, valid way.
Yeah. No, I will share that is one of my favorite animes currently. And I love All Might. Yeah, I'm not just saying that. Like I
No, I
really,
mean,
I actually
I
have
wouldn't blame you.
all the
It
box
is, it's,
sets. And,
you and I are on the same page. Like we're good. Like, yeah, I agree with you.
but man, I'm trying not to get a little yeah, in terms of like raw emotion, like you said earlier, like as far as Jiang, like in terms of tone, like you don't like hit like certain peak octaves or anything like that. But like there are so many different characters where you've had to put a lot in. Like in terms of like emotion or subtleness of like certain moments. And I was just curious, what was the most straining or hardest performance that you had to kind of go through in your career so far out of
Oh man.
any of the characters?
Uh, it's kind of a blur. Back the early days of Dragon Ball were just torturous because I was working constantly. We were rushing to get that show on Cartoon Network back in the day, and everything was just top speed, and there was no time. There was no time to rest. And luckily, I was young and spirited, and just thought I'd go for it, and just didn't think about how that like I could do some serious damage to my voice.
Yeah.
Very luckily, I didn't. But it had to have been all like during those early days of recording Vegeta. Those were intense because the Dragon Ball Z was it was ruthless, man. That show was that show did not do you any favors. You would have to scream and you'd have to scream, and then you when you think it was over, you'd have to scream some more. You know what I mean? So yeah, everything during like I remember Vegeta's fight and ultimate like death against Frieza was just intense to me. The Majin Vegeta era of recording the show was really intense, and it got really bad when all the characters were fighting. I remember scenes where like Piccolo and Yamcha were all fighting, and Vegeta were all fighting at the same time. One of those episodes where they kind of keep going back and back and forth because Piccolo like kind of rattles and messes up the lower part of my voice, and Yamcha like screws up the high part of my voice, and Vegeta is just like left to pick up the pieces. But yeah, that was some intense work, man. That was some really, really intense work. And in fact, some of the video games have been exhausting because you take all that work that we did on the series and then you compress it down into like 2 weeks. Like that game Kakarot, for instance, like that was that game lasted forever. Like that was almost like recording the entire series over a course of several months. And that was an exhausting time.
Wow. Well, I can say personally, your work has paid off. It has inspired millions, but specifically me, I can say like you are one of my favorite voice actors, honestly. Like, I mean, like up there, like somebody like Mark Hamill. Like you have one of the most recognizable voices of this generation, to be quite honest with you. And I don't want to gas you up, but I am gonna be honest with you.
I really appreciate that. I think what's weird is I think Mark Hamill and I we're in a similar situation. He kind of dropped into something unexpectedly, like early in his career, like just like me, like Vegeta is one of the best roles I could possibly ever have, and I got him long before I deserved to get something like that. And I think the same thing happened with him, and he kind of like had to just kind of go with it, he just kind of ran with it. But then he found that like I think he then found his real passion in voice acting because he's remarkable as a voice actor, and he's a great actor, but he really found, I think, his true joy in voice acting, and it was good for him. But yeah, I've had to get over the imposter syndrome I have sometimes of getting a role like this too soon in my career. But the only way I can make up for that is just by continuing to try to do the best I can in everything I do. I never try to phone it in. I never try and do it like I never assume any job is too dumb to work on or anything like that. I still take all the work that comes to me. I'm still extremely humble when it comes to the rates I'll accept to do stuff and things I'll do, because I love working with new talent. I like working with new people. And I just like working, actually. So
Well, yeah, no, I really do appreciate it. I actually recently just heard Mark Hamill. I got to actually screen Invincible early, the first three episodes, and he was featured in there out of nowhere. And that show is gonna be pretty epic. So
Wait,
maybe
I'm not sure I know. Is that a Disney Plus show? One of the new Disney
so
Plus shows?
that is gonna be with Amazon Prime. Robert Kirkman's Invincible comic was translated to animation, and they have a whole slew of. I mean, look, I'm gonna say this: if you could be up there at any point, like I'd recommend it because the voice acting cast is astronomical. Like it is really deep.
Huh.
In that comic, it goes for a long stretch of time. So if this moment, gets you to go and seek that out, please.
Yeah. Dude, I'll check it out. Send me an email with the name, like Invincible, right? Is that what you said?
Invincible.
I'm surprised. Let me see. Invincible. Oh, whoa. I just typed a bunch of nonsense. Invincible. Yeah. Okay. I've got it up. Yeah, and superhero comics are just murdering it right now. I mean, I think they're looking for anything in that genre. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, like I really enjoyed working on this film. Jiang Ziya was there was a lot of pressure, I think, to do it right. It was hard to do during COVID. In fact, I think got COVID like right as I was doing it. As soon as I finished it, I think I got it. Yeah, and it was at my own house. I was so safe, but then somebody came in to my house to do some work and brought an assistant. The person who was working, I trusted, but his assistant apparently had a fever and didn't tell anybody, and it was just a disaster.
God.
But I got the best, easiest version of COVID you could possibly get, which I was very grateful for. And it didn't really affect me too much. But there's a lot of other people on the cast I think are really notable too. Like Ian Sinclair, you probably are familiar with his work. If you look him up, he plays the kind of the sidekick in Jiang Ziya. His name is Shen Gongbao. And what's cool is that they don't really make as big of a deal of it as they should have. And it almost takes you like a second to realize that like he's a shapeshifter. I don't know if you noticed that as you were watching it. You're like, the first time it happens, you're like, wait, what was that? And then by the time it happens at the end of the film, you're like, okay. And Ian is just amazing. It brings a lot to it. There's also Morgan Garrett was somebody I brought in that I hadn't worked with too much. I've known her for a long time, and she just absolutely nailed it as the Nine-Tailed Fox. She's really, really good. You should look up her other credits. She's phenomenal. Monica Rial played the little she played the little cat creature. Oh man, I should have probably like researched this. I was so busy right before this interview that I forgot what it was called, the little dragon cat dog thing, whatever that thing is. I had cast her as that, thinking like she's going to be perfect for this. Well, then sometimes when you're working on these productions, the original language has the separated elements, and it had that thing baked into the sound effects. You know what I mean? Like it had that creature baked in. I was like, oh man, we don't get to use her. So we didn't record her. And then right at the very end, as we were turning it in, we're reviewing it, and we realized that creature disappeared. Like it was no longer in the show anymore. Like I guess whoever was like getting those materials ready, like put that creature in the sound effects for a while and then stopped. And then I had to quickly call her in and go like, oh crap. And it is so funny. We started her right where the other thing left off, and you literally can't tell a difference. In fact, so much so that I was like, let's just go back to the beginning and record you on the whole thing. She is phenomenal. Nice. There's another guy who really doesn't get a lot of credit because he's kind of like anyway, his name is Barry Yandell. He does a lot of stuff that he never plays leads because he's kind of this older gentleman. But I think he's one of Funimation's best character actors in and whenever you see his name, he always pops up in weird roles. Like I always use him as like freaky people. And it's so funny too, because he'll come in and play like he for instance played what's her name? He played Zhao Zhou's kind of the nine-tailed fox's love interest that you meet at the beginning,
the emperor,
the emperor who's going nuts, right?
Yeah.
When you catch up with him later, he just does this amazing job portraying that character. And I love him because you would never guess that this guy who plays these really crazy, over the top, many times very deep voiced, mature voice sounding people, he'll come into the booth and he literally sounds like this, like, "Hey Chris, I'm just so excited to come work on this show with you all. Like I love doing this stuff because I did, he's a teacher. He works like as a high school drama teacher and stuff like that. And it just sounds like this. And then when you put him on anything, he does like these amazing characters. He's so good."
That's crazy.
And then, of course, one of my favorite actresses, I think, another, if you want to talk about people who've been in the anime dub acting business forever, somebody who is like should come up immediately is Lucy Christian, who plays Jiao. Look up her credits. She's done everything. She's in My Hero Academia. She's in, that's only her most recent role. She probably has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of roles because she's a Houstonian who's worked with ADB Films since I started doing this stuff. Like, they were involved. They were doing shows like Cutie Honey back in the day when Funimation was working on Dragon Ball. And I didn't even know, I'm from Houston, but I was living in Dallas, of course, at the time. I didn't even know that there was a dubbing house in Houston. I was looking at the back of a videotape in my boss's office. I'm like, wait a minute, Jessica Calvello, that I know her. She's from Houston. There can't be anyone else named that. And then I looked him up, and sure enough, there's this other dub house in Houston called, ADB. I think they're currently called Sentai Filmworks. But yeah, Lucy is one of my all-time favorites too, and she really killed it. Admittedly, I directed this feature, but a lot of these had to actually go out, and a lot of her lines she had to record on her own because it was COVID, and she had to work with a very specific studio, and her times weren't lining up with my times very well. So a lot of times she was actually working kind of on her own in a vacuum, but she's just so good at this. It didn't take, I wasn't going to be able to give her any direction that she wouldn't have been able to nail herself,
Yeah. No, that's amazing. No, and that's really awesome that you gave recognition to them. I'm gonna actually edit that in when we get done with this interview. But yeah, I don't have any further questions. This was an honor.
Oh, cool, man.
Again, I'm a huge Tokyo Ghoul fan. And that first season, one of the things I loved about that character, like you said, it's not just a sycophantic villain. Like, he does have layers to why he does everything that he does. And I was kind of like, I wanted to pick your brain about his character, but I was. But dude,
that show freaked me out, man. I don't work on a whole lot of shows that give me nightmares, but that show really was legit freaky. Gosh, it was crazy.
It's dark.
I can't analyze that character as much because I was just so freaked out by literally what he was doing in every scene.
Oh, my goodness.
Very hard to pull that apart. So
yeah, I kind of figured like it was really hard, the torture and just how messed up and deranged he was. I kind of figured. But yeah, man, I really appreciate that. And yeah, I don't have anything else, man.
Well, thanks, man. It was great to see you, dude. Thank you. And I hope to talk with you again one of these days. Like, I'm sure everyone out there is going to love this film, and I'm glad that you're covering it. I think it deserves all the attention in the world, man.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, buddy. And you take care, be safe, and
likewise,
my prayers will be with you, man.
Thank you, dude. Take care, dude.
All right, take care. All right, bye.
All right.
All right, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this interview with Chris Sabat. Definitely go and check out Jiang Ziya. It is available right now on streaming services as well as on Blu-ray and DVD and 4K UHD. Hopefully you enjoyed this, guys. Peace. I have a special request. I'm going to send it to you in the chat.
All right.
If you do choose to accept it, that is the intro request. These different voices, I don't know if you want to try to do them or not, but yeah, that's the challenge.
Okay, let's try it. Here we go. It is I, Christopher Sabat. A voice I roll. Sorry, let me try that again. Sorry, a voice I voiced. Oh, okay. I have it. It's tiny on my phone. In fact, watch this. I'll show you how old I've gotten. I'm gonna put on my reading spectacles. There we go. It's which is high. Okay, here we go.
That is. Oh my God.
Doing the, it's interesting you asked me to do the Jason voice. I don't get to do that voice very often. It's very interesting that you asked for that.